Australia is a land rich in bird life. There are more than 700 species which occupy a huge diversity of habitats. One group, our shorebirds, are struggling because of pressures from people and introduced predators. On the south coast of New South Wales, there are 4 species of particular concern: little terns, hooded plovers, and pied and sooty oystercatchers. Each of these species are now listed as threatened. The New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service has developed a recovery program to help increase population numbers and breeding success of these threatened shorebird species. In order to achieve these aims, the National Park Service has relied on the help of an army of volunteers for more than a decade. Their assistance has been critical to protecting nesting areas from disturbance and helping to educate the wider community on the plight of these shorebirds. Shorebirds live, eat, breed and nest on the shoreline. Unfortunately, this is the same place and space that people want to enjoy during summer months. The endangered little tern migrates each year from Southeast Asia and Japan to breed along Australia's east coast. They fly thousands of kilometres, choosing sand spits and beaches on which to lay their eggs and raise their young in colonies ranging from a handful of birds up to hundreds. There are international agreements between Australia, Korea, China and Japan to help preserve habitat for these tiny seabirds. Unlike the little tern, hooded plovers, sooty and pied oystercatchers are resident species. They form pairs in spring to commence breeding and often choose the same beach or estuary each year. The hooded plover is critically endangered, with less than 50 remaining in New South Wales. They are now only found breeding south of Jervis Bay. While not in as much trouble as hooded plovers and little terns, the sooty and pied oystercatchers have experienced a steady decline in their number over recent decades and have raised fewer and fewer chicks.
When my nan, Victoria Thomas, when she was a little girl, she told me a story about how they used to go over to the beach fishing at Wallaga. Mum and her dad would be fishing, on the beach, and my nan, she'd be swimming and collected shells off the beach, and she spotted these little bird eggs, and one of the birds used to lure her up the beach, singing out, calling out for her, and they'd try and get her to follow her up the beach, and she'd run after this bird, and her mum and her dad would be calling her back, Victoria, come back, and this bird lured her all the way up the beach.
The nesting habits of these shorebird species increases their vulnerability to disturbance and trampling of eggs and chicks. Their nest is a mere scrape or shallow hollow created in the sand, and their eggs and chicks are so well camouflaged that they are very hard to see against the sandy background. People visiting beaches during the summer can also disrupt feeding and incubation unknowingly, just by sitting too close to nesting birds. If you see these shorebirds repeatedly calling or making a fuss around you, then you are probably close to their eggs or chicks, and you should move away. People with pets should always keep their animals under control and away from nesting areas. All shorebird species are vulnerable to predators. Introduced feral species are a major problem, particularly foxes. However, even some native species can prove to be lethal for breeding shorebirds. Ravens, goannas, snakes and even seagulls are all known to take unprotected eggs and chicks. Shorebirds also have to contend with high seas, king tides, storms and flooding lakes, which can inundate nests. For the past decade, volunteers have been critical in efforts to help save these threatened shorebirds. Volunteers are mostly local residents, many of whom just want to contribute to the protection of their local wildlife. All volunteers contribute where they can. Volunteers assist National Park shorebird coordinators with many different tasks required to protect these threatened shorebirds over the 6-month breeding season. This includes monitoring bird numbers and movements, locating nests and keeping tally of breeding success. Volunteers also help erect temporary fences that are placed around nesting colonies, as well as educational signs that explain why people should respect nesting areas and avoid disturbing birds. A major challenge for the program is to increase public awareness about threatened shorebirds. Volunteers assist with this vital task by talking to beachgoers and visitors about potential threats and answering questions. Volunteers also gain new skills. They learn to identify the different shorebirds, their habits and behaviours and signs that indicate nesting activity, including following tracks in the sand and locating nest scrapes. Volunteers also learn to identify threats to nests and what actions may be required to protect them. Importantly, volunteers keep watch, protecting the birds throughout the season from people and predators until such time as the nestlings have fledged. In 10 years, the efforts of volunteers has led to an increase in the number of little terns and a halt to the decline in the number of hooded plovers and sooty and pied oystercatchers.
When my grandma was little, she said to me there was always birds on the beach, even around the lakes. Now, my age, like the next generation, there's hardly any birds left on the beach, and I think it's the next generation that has to, step up and look after these birds.
It's hard to believe 10 years has gone by since the start of this program. A lot of the volunteers have been with the program for all those 10 years. It is quite inspirational how the enthusiasm of the group can rub off on the community in general and raise the awareness of how important it is for these vulnerable birds. There's always a welcome for new people to come and join. It doesn't matter whether you're old or young, providing you're just reasonably physically active. I think it's really rewarding to be able to do something positive with a program like this. It gives you the means of putting into practice often things that individuals can't do by themselves, but as a group, to make a difference with the survival rates of endangered species.
These gorgeous little birds, they fly from Asia, all around the world to come here to nest. And they're terribly vulnerable, and it's a privilege and a great joy to help them succeed.
For the future preservation of these species, we all need to learn to share the shoreline.